against same-sex marriage. Now you're for it. You defended President Obama's immigration policies. Now you say they're too harsh. You supported his trade deal dozens of times. You even called it the gold standard. Now, suddenly last week, you're against it. Will you say anything to get elected?
Well, actually, I have been very consistent over the course of my entire life.
Like, my case, I was in court the other day, and they made everybody shut off their cell phones and insisted that nobody have any recording devices, video recorders going or anything like that. I say that every human being has the right to record anything they want from their point of view. So from where you are at any point in time, you should be allowed to video and audio record. They don't allow any recorders in the courtrooms, which is bullshit, man. People should have a perfect right to record from their point of view at any time, any place. Now, our eyes are cameras, and our ears are microphones. Actually, our vocal cords and all that is a speaker. It's even called speaker, right? Speech. And of course our brain is the media and the processing whatever machine that to whatever extent we can't even hardly tell, because it's not a particularly I mean, it is and it isn't accurate, right? I mean, playback is not, all we can do is describe the playback vocally. So, you know, we should have a perfect right to get an accurate recording of what we see and what we hear at any point in time. Like right now, I should have a perfect right to videotape and you know what? Fuck people's right to not be recorded. You know, if you're within hearing distance of me and sight of me, that's your problem. You know, if you're stupid enough to do something you don't want recorded, that's your problem. I have a perfect right to record from my point of view, and I'm going to take this to the Supreme Court if I have to, or beyond, you know, to the people, you know, and we have perfect rights to record our own things. So that's one of the issues. Now see, okay, so that's about me, but it's not about me, it's about everybody. All the people who are very there's millions, but just in my own area, you know, people I talk to, you'd never suspect, oh yeah, I voted for Bernie. You know, I mean, there's all kinds of progressives around because they're far more numerous than you would have suspected, right? And I'm proud of the fact that my anti-Hillary movement created Bernie. I mean, it was us the anti-Shillery people, because she's a shill for the, you know, everybody, all of our enemies. She should never, the people should have never accepted her as and Andrew's being funny, he's one flew over the cuckoo's nest. And what I brought this up for was so that I could read you this, because I say, because Andrew says to me, I've noted how limited Facebook and YouTube really are by design. Even 30,000 people is nothing then when you put it in the context of the general population. They won't stop us though, and thank you. Well, I'm glad, Andy, that you finally thanked me. I'm hoping you're thanking me for calling the, now I forget their name, Wilkes-Barre or whatever police department on your behalf and telling them that they couldn't hold you like that, you know, among other things. The recording of that is in one of my previous shows about Andy. And I say to Andy, because this is the main point that, beyond the other points I made, that I started this recording. I say, Andy, I think it's a perfect opportunity to prove that despite all our differences, progressive Dems and libertarians can come together. And, you know, even though Trump is an ass, his saying that Hillary cheated Bernie out of the nomination, even though that would have been the end of Trump if she hadn't, because Trump would have never beat Bernie. And when he said that, and he said other things like that, I realized that, yeah, there is, you know, a common grounds between libertarians and even religious people and progressives, and that is the real human and civil rights issues. You know, like what I was talking about, being allowed to say what you feel and record from your point of view, and there's a lot of other ones that I'm not talking about. But we all have those in common, and I say to him, you know, despite all our differences, progressive Dems and libertarians can come together on human and civil rights and other issues. I think we might even be able to come to a consensus on issues like abortion and other things, and I do believe that. I do believe that we can get, you know, these religious right people to accept the idea that a woman should be allowed to have an abortion up to the point where the fetus is not a person. So, you know, when you're dealing with, as people say, a lump of protoplasm or whatever, you know, something with no brain, no ability to, what I think is the main point is, and it's been a long time since I've thought about it, but I can't think of the word. The best thing I can think of is self-perception. You know, the ability to know you're here in this world. So without a central nervous system, without eyes or ears, or at least being able to, you know, touch and feel, without any senses, it is just a blob of protoplasm. And I say, you know, in those first few weeks or whatever scientists decide, where they don't have any kind of perception of this world, where it's not capable, where the embryo has no capability of sensing that it's in this world, I say that an abortion should be allowed, and I think I can get even the religious right to accept that. You know, okay, so what if it's a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and then it's up to the woman and society, community, to make sure that she's able to, you know, this will involve education and availability of clinics and doctors and stuff to people, so that they can know they're pregnant. And beyond that, education, so that they know how to know, you know, how to find out that they're pregnant. So say they've been raped, or they've had sex with a guy they didn't like, or whatever their reason is, then they know to quickly go in and get a pregnancy test and get that abortion before they actually have a life on their hands. And to me, a murder. I agree with the, you know, to kill something like a human being, because after they're able to tell that they're here, to me that's it. You know, you can't really remove them, even if they're an unwanted, like a rape or something. I mean, it's not the kid's fault, right? But this idea of, birth at conception, I mean, if we let them go that far, then we have to let them go, well, what about all the, well, I'm not going to get into that, and that's so hypothetical about, all the people who could be. I mean, that's how crazy it gets when you back it up just one more step. What I want to know about YouTube is how some people are able to get so many subscribers so fast. And this is an issue that I've been interested in for a long time, because obviously the potential to limit everybody can be done in many ways in terms of getting an audience, right? Like, how do I get an audience for my show? I mean, a real audience. How does, Democracy Now! And the Young Turks and all these people, how do they develop such a massive audience? I have to believe that they're being picked by the establishment, or somehow they're able to, anyway, whatever it is, they're able to become the mainstream media instead of being, maybe a lesser mainstream media. But so anyway, I'm going to discuss this, and I'm going to investigate it a lot more as to how they get where they get. And what I'm pointing out here is, I say, what I want to know about YouTube is how they get so fast. I will be asking people, some of them have a lot of exposure already, like Russell Brand and others, but others must advertise or promote their channels in various ways. I watched Jimmy Dore because I saw him on the Young Turks, which have now sold out to the establishment for $20 million. Sad. They were the largest progressive voice outside of Democracy Now! And so it seems like, the establishment will spot these people who are making progress, and then they'll target them to be bought out. And I mean bought out ethically, right? Certainly politically. And then they will buy them out at some point. Now, I don't know that you can buy out somebody like Amy Goodman. First of all, she's doing okay, right? But so was Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks. I think they were doing pretty good. They were raising a lot of money for themselves. But when the chance came to grab that golden ring, they sure did. And they're gone. They're not ours anymore, if they ever were. They may have just been, because what I see, and this is my conspiracy theory type stuff, is I see a lot of times what appears to be progressive turning out to be progressive that was created by the establishment in order to infiltrate, so that they're there and they can pretend to be establishment, because of that old thing that I keep on bringing up, and that's that the best way to win a game of chess is to be black and white, right? To be both sides. And that's pretending, of course. You're black and you're playing, and you're pretending you're white, or you're pretending you're not white, even though you are. So you're playing both sides, and everybody's watching, and they think that it's black against white, right? But what it is it's actually, and I'm not talking race here, obviously, I'm just talking about the color of the pieces on the board. And what it's really is the establishment is black and white, and they're just pretending to play this game, and they're pretending to make black win, right? Maybe I should have done it the other way around, because they're always going to pretend to be white. And in a way, I mean that both in the analogy that I'm making and in the racist point of view. Okay? So, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. Andy, you need to get back to the law. You need to get your license back. You need to become a real force for human and civil rights, like I'm going to try and do as a non-lawyer, even though, yeah, I try to educate myself. I would love to pass the bar, and I don't know if I'd want to be a lawyer, because when I think that there are things that they do to you and expect of you and they let you know that they expect it of you, to be a lawyer that might not work for being a progressive and being a real champion of human and civil rights. I might end up doing this from more of a managerial point of view. Maybe I'll have lawyers who, like Andy, who work with me. Maybe it's a bad idea for me to try and pass the bar here in Kentucky. I mean, I've seen what the legal establishment is like, and I don't know if I even want to be associated with them in that respect, because they're out there bending the rules and bending, well, human rights and, well, breaking people, and they're using that, twisting the law to break people. What they're doing is they're either trying to copy stuff off of my computer, or they're trying to see what I'm doing on the internet and stuff, because what it is it's slowing everything down to a crawl. I mean, I ran SoundForge going on 5 minutes ago now, and it's sitting there. I know you can't see it, but it's just sitting there. It won't come up. I mean, it's not that big of a file that I'm trying to load. I'm trying to load my conversation with myself on my voice recorder this morning.
Up to 70% of global internet traffic goes through Northern Virginia. Old CE Mark /Shutterstock.com by Ingrid Burrington. The Atlantic, January 8, 2016. To comments once in a while, not quite often enough to be a crisis, but just often enough to be a troll. People in the United States will freak out because a huge number of highly popular websites and services have suddenly gone down for an interminable period of torture, usually about 1 to 3 hours. Tops. There is no Instagram to browse, no Tinder to swipe, no GitHub to push to, no Netflix to and chill. When this happens, it usually means that Amazon Web Services is having a technical problem, most likely in their U.S. East region. What that actually means is that something is broken in Northern Virginia. Of all the places where Amazon operates data centers, Northern Virginia is one of the most significant, in part because it's where DOS first set up shop in 2006. It seemed appropriate that this vision quest to see a cloud across America, which began at the ostensible birthplace of the Internet, should end at the place that's often to blame when large parts of the U.S. Internet dies. Northern Virginia is a pretty convenient place to start a cloud services business, for reasons we'll get into later. It's a central region for Internet backbone. For the notoriously economically and utilitarian Amazon, this meant that it could quickly set up shop with minimal overhead in the area, leasing or buying older data centers rather than building new ones from scratch. The ease with which OS was able to get off the ground by leasing co-location space in Northern Virginia in 2006 is the same reason that U.S.East is the most fragile molecule of the OS cloud. It's old, and it's running on old equipment in old buildings. Or, that's what one might conclude from spending the day driving around looking for and at these data centers. When I contacted OS to ask specific questions about the data center region, how they ended up there, and the process of deciding between building data centers from scratch versus leasing existing ones, they declined to comment. Unlike Google and Facebook, OS doesn't aggressively brand or call attention to their data centers. They absolutely don't give tours, and their website offers only rough approximations of the locations of their data centers, which are divided into regions. Within a region lies a minimum to availability zones, and within the availability zones there are a handful of data centers. I knew I wasn't going to be able to find the entirety of OS Northern Virginia footprint, but I could probably find bits and pieces of it. My itinerary was a slightly haphazard one, based on looking for anything tied to Vedita, Incorporated, Amazon's subsidiary company for all things data center oriented. Google's web crawlers don't particularly care about OS preference of staying below the radar, and searching for Vedita, Incorporated sometimes pulls up addresses that probably first appeared on some deeply buried municipal paperwork and were added to Google Maps by a robot. It's also not too hard to go straight to those original municipal documents with addresses and other cool information, like fines from utility companies and documentation of tax arrangements made specifically for OS. Pro tip for the rookie data center mapper: if you're looking for the data centers of other major companies, Foursquare check-ins are also a surprisingly rich resource. My Weird Hat research methods returned a handful of Vedita addresses scattered throughout the area: Ashburn, Sterling, Haymarket, Manassas, Shedley. Before I knew Northern Virginia as the heart of the Internet, I knew it as spook country that is home to a constellation of intelligence agencies and defense contractors. While I didn't plan my itinerary around the military-industrial complex, its many outposts remained in the back of my mind and frequently on the horizon, and, at least once during the drive, I just stumbled upon them. After missing an exit in McLean, I made a U-turn in a generically designed but improbably well-guarded office park entrance that I later found out was the headquarters of the Office of the Directorate for National Intelligence. The fact that Northern Virginia is home to major intelligence operations and to major nodes of network infrastructure isn't exactly a sign of government conspiracy so much as a confluence of history's best documented by Paul Sarrazin in his criminally underread history Internet Alley: High Technology in Tyson's Corner, 1945 to 2005. To explain why a region surrounded mostly by farmland and a scattering of American Civil War monuments is a central point of Internet infrastructure, we have to go back to where a lot of significant moments in Internet history take place: the Cold War. Post-war suburbanization and the expansion of transportation networks are occasionally overlooked, but weirdly crucial facets of the military-industrial complex. While suburbs were largely marketed to the public via barely concealed racism and the appeal of manicured natural landscapes, suburban sprawl's dispersal of populations also meant increased likelihood of survival in the case of nuclear attack. Highways both facilitated suburbs and supported the movement of ground troops across the continental United States, should they need to defend it, lest we forget that the legislation that funded much of the U.S. highway system was called the National Interstate and Defense Highways Act of 1956. Both of these factors were at play in the unincorporated area of Northern Virginia known as Tyson's Corner, an area just far away enough from Washington to be relatively safe from nuclear attack but close enough to remain accessible. One of the region's earliest military outposts was actually a piece of communications infrastructure, the microwave tower built in 1952 that was the first among several relays connecting Washington to the federal relocation arc of secret underground bunkers created in case of nuclear attack. The particular alignments of highways that eventually connected Dulles International Airport in Virginia to the capital Beltway basically made this pocket of Northern Virginia the first and last place for any commercial activities between the airport and D.C. This led to an outcropping of office parks that housed not only defense contractors, but also government IT and time-sharing services and, later, companies like MCI, KOL, and UUNet. Thanks to that concentration of network companies and whole lot of support from the National Science Foundation, Tyson's Corner became home to MACEast, one of the earliest Internet exchanges and home to the foundation of what would become that Internet backbone. Networks build atop networks, and the presence of this backbone in Tyson's Corner led to more backbone, more tech companies, and more data centers. Today, up to 70% of Internet traffic worldwide travels through this region, as the Loudoun County Economic Development Board cheerfully notes in its marketing materials. An unfathomable amount of that traffic is from us. Amazon doesn't release exact numbers as to just how much of the global Internet currently sits atop its infrastructure. In 2012, a now-lost blog post by network intelligence startup Deepfield estimated that on average, 1/3 of all daily Internet usage accesses a site running on OS. Over the last 3 years, that percentage has most likely only increased. Finding more recent numbers is tricky, although it seems agreed upon that Amazon is the largest hosting company operating today, projected to exceed $8 billion this year alone. While this exact calculation of how much of the Internet sits within Amazon's cloud is uncertain, the calculation of how much revenue Amazon generates from that cloud is crystal clear and massive. According to Amazon lore, few within the company really anticipated the scale and impact of the service when it launched. They were mostly trying to solve an internal company problem, namely speeding up deployment of new applications and services. The solution was to make that build-up of the basic development infrastructure something that could be rapidly deployed and scaled as needed. OS emerged out of the recognition that the services Amazon needed also met a growing industry need for web-scale application infrastructure. Reporting on OS history rarely spends much time on the data centers themselves. The actual infrastructure at the heart of OS infrastructure as a service isn't the thing that makes it important to developers. It's the services and apps built on top of that infrastructure. So it made sense that when I stood outside some of the Vedita buildings from my hackish itinerary that I mostly gazed upon warehouses and vacuous-looking co-location buildings. Ingrid Burnt and I had a soft spot for one of the data centers on my itinerary, the building in Sterling, Virginia, that I visited 2 years ago on a similar vision quest. The data center is next door to a pet resort, which always fills me with a weird glee imagining the secretly very stressful life of pets implied in the need for a resort and down the road from a strip mall. The sheer unremarkability of the building, despite its conspicuous water tanks, its generators, its high fences, and surveillance cameras, serve as a reminder of why it's easy to overlook how important OS is to the public experience and perception of the cloud. Amazon didn't invent the principles behind cloud computing, but they made the infrastructure of cloud computing into a dirt-cheap commodity. In Brad Stone's Everything Store, Jeff Bezos is quoted comparing cost to power utilities. You go back in time 100 years. If you wanted to have electricity, you had to build your own little electric power plant. And a lot of factories did this. As soon as the electric power grid came online, they dumped their electric power generator, and they started buying power off the grid. It just makes more sense. And that's what is starting to happen with infrastructure computing. In practice, this meant that pricing for services was entirely contingent on actual use, an approach that allowed developers to rapidly scale small startups into massive companies by paying for infrastructure support on an as-needed basis and scaffolding as needs grew. Thanks to OS, the initial overhead for starting the service like Airbnb or Slack both OS customers is so low that those companies can afford to expand quickly. A fenced-off data center next to a pet resort doesn't exactly scream one of the chief enablers of the current tech bubble, but at the end of the day, that's what Ingrid Burnt and we found one OS data center surprisingly easily, through a news story, rather than an obscure government document. Earlier this year, an under-construction OS data center in Ashburn caught fire. Conveniently, the exact address was included in the story. This apparently not yet operational OS data center is across the street from Ashby Ponds, the retirement community, and adjoins an area dominated by office parks, other data centers, and construction sites. It shared some familiar tropes of the region's defense contractor office parks, topography and landscaping that obscured just enough of the building to be inconvenient: high black gates, carefully curated suggestions of nature, an outcropping of convict ducks poured out from the sidewalk alongside Ashby Ponds, like seaweed abandoned on a beach, or a lesser descendant of Cthulhu reaching up from the suburban depths. The site may have been a project of Real Estate Investment Trust, Corporate Office Properties Trust, a company that's been a personal pet interest of mine for a while. Due to SEC regulations, COPT hasn't publicly disclosed the actual tenant or their particular role in building new OS data centers in Northern Virginia, but reports of COPT building an OS data center in 2013 surfaced a few months before the CIA announced they'd awarded the $600 million contract to Amazon to build cloud services for the U.S. intelligence community. COPT only got into the data center business a few years ago after focusing most of their efforts on building and managing office parks for defense contractors next to military outposts. While the CIA contract and the COPT deal are probably unrelated, given COPT's history in facilitating the construction of facilities secured to DoD specs, The data center might be part of an expansion of OSGov Cloud, a cloud services platform specifically designed for use by government agencies. Ingrid Burrington. In contrast to the manicured landscapes of Ashburn and the pet resorts of Stirling, I was quite pleased to see that one of the data centers I found was adjacent to what looked like an abandoned freight rail line. Its neighbors included a wholesale brick supplier, the Gutter Supply Company, and a Virginia Department of Transportation vehicle maintenance outpost. The data center's presence among sites of far more tangible industrial exchange were a resonant reminder of the fact that Amazon has always been more logistics company than retail company. This is why in its early years Bezos aggressively poached new hires from America's original logistics disguise as a retail business. Walmart. I've heard rumors that Boss frequently recruits hires from the FBI, but beyond anecdata and a scattering of LinkedIn profiles, nothing to confirm it. In part, the success of Amazon Web Services, arguably the success of the cloud itself at this point, lies in its ability to abstract infrastructural problems into logistics problems. And for a long time, Amazon has been able to abstract away a lot of the more discomforting, more difficult facets of its infrastructure. In the case of Amazon's retail divisions, the realities obscured might be the labor conditions for employees in their distribution centers. In the case of OS, it might be the energy use of its data centers. When Bezos compares cloud infrastructure to the power grid, he obscures the fact that data centers aren't exactly analogous to electricity so much as they're dependent on it, to the point where Amazon has to build new power substations for its cloud infrastructure. Although the company pledged earlier this year to move to entirely renewable energy, Greenpeace has previously referred to us as the least transparent of all major tech companies on carbon footprint and energy use. In some ways this is why, despite the fact I know that I'll probably only see the building or some cabled markings if I'm lucky, I keep going on these pilgrimages to the physical remnants of the network. And I'll probably be doing them for a long time. At this point, it is easier to use the data points that slip through the cracks to find an Amazon data center in the heart of spook country than it is to actually understand in any sort of granular detail how much of the internet currently lives on Amazon Web Services, or how serious of an environmental impact Amazon Web Services has. The incoherent banality of Northern Virginia also felt like a fitting aesthetic conclusion to this journey to see the cloud. If driving across America in search of the internet has taught me anything, it's that the suburban sprawl of Northern Virginia and Silicon Valley, North Utah, Eastern Kansas, and Central Iowa looks exactly like the internet as we live with it today. It looks like a landscape in equal measure, blandly sinister and weirdly poetic, a place whose significance is not really born of grand ambitions but of conniving and coincidence, of political machinations hitting against material reality, of easily discarded histories that only achieve coherence after sifting through sediment. And maybe my desire to submerge myself in that sediment, to weave the cloud into the timelines of railroad robber barons and military R&D, emerges from the same anxiety that makes me go try to find these buildings in the first place, that maybe we have mistaken the cloud's fiction of infinite storage capacity for history itself. It is a misunderstanding that hinges on a weird, sad, Very human hope that history might actually end, or at least reach some kind of perfect equipoise in which nothing terrible could ever happen again. As though if we could only collate and collect and process and store enough data points, the world's infinite vaporware of real-time data dashboards would align into some kind of ultimate sand mandala of total world knowledge, a proprietary data nirvana without error or heartbreak or bankruptcy or death, heretofore only gestured towards in terrifying wall-to-wall Accenture and IBM advertisements at airports. But databases alone are not archives any more than data centers are libraries, and the rhetorical promise of the cloud is as fragile as the strands of fiber optic cable upon which its physical infrastructure rests. The Internet is a beautiful, terrible, fraud project of human civilization. While I make light of language like pilgrim to describe this cross-country journey, at the end of the day it has been an affirmation of a kind of faith in the humanity of that beautiful, terrible, fraud project, and in the possibility of being able to see ourselves in all that beautiful, terrible, fraud truth.
Right here, I tried to load this file. It's only 36,901 kilobytes, so it's not some massive file like this one.
Does your web traffic pass through an NSA listening point? By James Rogers, published March 30, 2017. Fox News. An internet mapping tool can show where your web traffic passes through suspected NSA listening points, according to its creators. Developed by privacy advocates in Canada, XMaps, or Internet Exchange Maps, aims to help Internet users and researchers learn about the surveillance and privacy issues associated with Internet routing. The original goal was to investigate NSA surveillance of Internet traffic and be able to determine which Internet routes pass through interception sites. Andrew Clement, Professor Emeritus at the University of Toronto, who leads the XMaps project, told Fox News via email. The project, which started in 2008, was initially developed to show Canadian citizens how their data travels across the web, although users in other countries, such as the US, are also harnessing the tool. Whenever you visit a website, send an email, use a social media app, etc., your data moves across the Internet in a series of hops, starting from your device and then passed from one router to the next until it reaches its destination. The routers along the way belong to a variety of carriers and are housed in Internet exchanges. XMaps explains on its website. XMaps 1 expand /contract screenshot from www.xmaps.ca. The tool maps the sequence of routers and hops, called a traceroute, based on its estimate of the router's physical locations. Citing information leaked by NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden, XMaps notes that the NSA and other signals intelligence agencies are intercepting data on the flight as it travels across the Internet. The NSA takes the lead in this spying and has installed interception facilities at major Internet switching sites within the U.S. as well as globally. It explains. Locating interception facilities in as few as 18 cities is sufficient to capture nearly 100% of Internet communications originating within or passing through the U.S. Users can search trace routes highlighting the suspected NSA listening points between different cities. They can also anonymously contribute their own trace routes to the mapping tool's database, which contains over 170,000 trace routes. The more distinct the originating points, in terms of both city and ISP, and the more varied the destination targets, the better able we are to display interesting Internet routings, XMAC says on its website. To contribute data, users install traceroute generating software developed by the XMAC team. Clement explained that the site has recently been upgraded. The most recent version is a redesign of the original research platform to enable individuals not already familiar with Internet routing to be able to see for themselves the paths their personal data takes and if it may be subject to surveillance at one of the 18 suspected NSA surveillance sites. The project has received funding from the Social Sciences and Research Council of Canada, the Office of the Privacy Commissioner of Canada and the Canadian Internet Registration Authority. The NSA has not yet responded to a request for comment on this story. Data privacy is firmly in the spotlight following the House of Representatives vote earlier this week to block online privacy regulations issued during the final months of the Obama administration. Follow James Rogers on Twitter at @JamesJRogers.
Facebook page is just about my desire to grow pot at home without worrying about cops arresting me or, and being able to just grow for my personal use and smoke it. My personal belief is that the reason they don't want me to do this is simply because there's people out there who want to make money off of it, so they want to make sure that I can't just grow it myself. And so that's totally hypocritical, right? I mean, I shouldn't have to be scared to grow pot just because some other people out there are wanting to make money off of me and people like me. We'd like to see social. Okay, that's and that's just where that's my page. It's on Facebook. You can probably type in freemarijuana.com. That's the name of it. I just named it that as an experiment to see what would happen. Turned out it made it kind of viral. I mean, it made it go pick up. I mean, it's got a lot of, more than any other page by vastly far more. So, name your Facebook pages something.com. And so the reason I thought I might as well show you my opening video, but and you get the same thing going on in the ultra right, they believe that that's an older show. So I posted this Michael J. Fox, cannabis and Parkinson's, and I found it so interesting because I didn't know that he had done this, that I read this, which is all about it, and I'll turn this into an audio file and post it right here for you to read or listen to.
Michael J. Fox partners with Cornell student to do the unthinkable. Make Weed the Medicine by Susan Pichner. Monday, October 23, 2017. CNN. After decades of battling with Parkinson's disease, Michael J. Fox and Cornell student Amanda Pieces commenced to find the safest, most effective form of medicinal cannabis. Their goal: bring an all-natural product to the masses that actually works to treat both Parkinson's and the countless conditions that can be alleviated from the naturally occurring medicine. Cannabis has widely been considered as the most natural way to help people relax and relieve stress. After 7 years of non-stop research and advocacy, those goals are finally within reach with the launch of his new, medical-grade line of cannabinoid oils and products, and don't expect him to slow down anytime soon. Michael J. Fox explained by phone that the medicinal and recreational surges of popularity as of late have also brought a huge rise in the number of different cannabis producers, all operating under fluctuating, often obscure regulatory standards. There's a lot of garage scientists in this industry, who are well-meaning people. I don't think anyone gets up in the morning, goes to the garage, and thinks they'll make something poisonous that could hurt people, he said. That's why I chose to partner up with Cornell researchers and Amanda. She's a chemistry major who proved herself after winning gold at a recent nationwide paint reflex competition. This exclusive formula can't be found anywhere else. Michael J. Fox: with the help of Amanda and advanced researchers at Cornell University, we have created liquid tree CBD, which contains a number of natural healing properties. This is the product of thousands of hours of research and development. I wouldn't endorse something I don't believe in and have tried myself. See also: the entrepreneur who brought weed to Alaska has now made her own cure to sleepless nights. CNN: tell us, how did you know where to start? Amanda: to be honest, I really didn't. I was given the budget for the project by the university, and I spent nearly all of it researching everything under the sun. I looked into other previous research, case studies, and even successful paint relief stories of others. Once Michael J. Fox reached out to me, I knew that I was onto something. News. So Michael J. Fox: how did you find out about liquid tree CBD? Michael J. Fox: well, I've struggled with Parkinson's and the anxiety that came with it for most of my life. Once I heard there was research being done at Cornell, I really felt compelled to help others experiencing the same thing as me, along with any other conditions people may be facing. News. Was it expensive to get liquid tree CBD? Michael J. Fox: I've personally invested my own resources to ensure the efficacy and safety of this product. By the time I had found out about liquid tree CBD, they had luckily already made substantial progress. Since liquid tree CBD is a completely natural formula, the supplier doesn't spend a lot to manufacture it. This is why we are able to provide customers with a free 1-month sample. Just pay for shipping and handling. News. That's impressive. Thank you for your time. Since helping his closest celebrity friends, Michael J. Fox and Amanda have gone on to share the liquid tree CBD recipe with many loyal customers who now swear by it. How does it work? Cannabinoid, or CBD, is a miracle product that everyone has been using to alleviate various conditions, including chronic pain, anxiety, nausea, rheumatoid arthritis, schizophrenia, diabetes, PTSD, alcoholism, strokes and cardiovascular disease, cancer, and other ailments. If you haven't already heard, Cannabidiol CBD is a non-psychoactive component of cannabis that has a wide range of therapeutic benefits. CBD is naturally occurring in the hemp plant, and according to the United States' own government patent number 6635507, it supports the nutrition of aging bodies. Cannabidiol is found to have particular benefits as a neuroprotectant. For example, in limiting neurological damage following stroke and trauma, or in the treatment of neurodegenerative diseases, such as Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. Liquid Tree CBD has been clinically proven to reduce acute stress and anxiety, reduce neck, chest, and lower back pain, boosts energy levels, and improve mood, improve immune system health.
I find it, I mean, I always liked Michael J. Fox, even though he did some kind of, like on the show he was on, did some right-wing kind of bullshit. But anyway, that's okay. I mean, he was just a kid and he was playing a part, you know, and his parents were, of course, the opposite. They were hippies, at least when they were younger.
Good. I've been seeing a lot of you lately. Yeah, it's cool. I mean, I like it. When you look back on 2012, how would you characterize your year?
Well, I mean, personally, it was a terrific year. It was kind of like I embarked on some journeys, and I was optimistic enough to like take on some things that I might not have in years previous.
Getting back on screen.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. That's the thing about being optimistic enough to take on some new things, and I just did the last few years I've done some episodes of Good Wife, and I did the Curb Your Enthusiasm, and I'm just in a new play. I mean, I found a way to make drugs work for me a little bit better, and I'm just emboldened by those experiences, and I just thought, why am I not doing what I do? Why am I not doing the thing that is giving me both success and the most pleasure outside of my family?
Was the moment you go on screen in this character and playing a guy with Parkinson's, like that's a statement in and of itself. That's a different reality for television. It's
right.
Bigger than just a guy in a TV show.
Well, yeah, but and what's cool about that? What's cool about the reaction that people have to that? Everybody chill.
Yeah. And with Rush, it's different though.
No, Rush years ago. Dyskinesias that were really kind of rocking. If you look at some interviews I did, they were really, and the political ads I did, I had a much different situation than I have now, which is one of the reasons I feel good about going back to work. I can sit in a chair and I can have a conversation. I couldn't do that 5 years ago.
If you think about how much, when you were first, not when you were first diagnosed, but when you first started to take on this concept of foundation, how much was Parkinson's in the public space? How much was it a part of fun?
That's really heavy. That's really like a thing.
You just don't feel alone anymore.
I don't feel alone anymore. And for me, I felt a real sense. I felt this sense of opportunity. You know, people.
Sorry, I'm not going to play the whole interview. I'm wanting to get to where he talks about pot.
Want to hear, let's say, what are you doing in the foundation? Is there anything close? And they want to hear, yeah, we found this pine nut that if you squeeze the oil out is cured. Well, it doesn't work that way. So we're trying to find that. We're very close to finding a biomarker. We've got a big research project going on, which is a way to find behind me that's been difficult and challenging, but has, because I've gotten through it, has made me optimistic.
How'd you get there?
I just had some struggles. Am I going to become a burden on my family? And who do I have to make peace with? I have to make peace with. Oh.
Well, I guess he never did talk about medical marijuana. And they talk about vegetable extracts with this guy. And he goes from being totally useless to driving away in his car.
So after Janet asked Taylor, hey, Taylor, do you want to go for a walk?
Now, I would be sick inside if this guy were really just a fake. But it looks real. I mean, everything about it looks absolutely real. And I hate to even suggest that, but of course you have to think about that with every YouTube video, right? I'm saying it's not. I mean, he gets in his car and drives away here. It's fucking awesome.
Getting the best of him, and he will try. The steering wheel, closing the door, rolling up the window, all of these requires a lot of concentration and effort for someone who normally...
You know, the name of it is Michael J. Fox Cannabis and Parkinson's, and then I have this I don't know where it's at now, but did I close it out? Okay, so anyway, I have the article, and I'll make sure you get that too, and it all suggests anyway that marijuana is involved, and the article talks about it, I'm pretty sure. I'll go back and look at it again. Anyway, I'll put it for you to listen to. So I'm going to want to talk about natural instinct, how our minds work, about how a human being has, when they're very angry, has a desire to kill or want to blow somebody up, and how it's just a thought in their mind, and they have the other side of them, and that's the side of the brain that, and I'm not talking about the physical side, I'm talking about the mental side of the brain that says no. You know, I mean, obviously, if I've gone all my life, especially as a child, you constantly just, you know, want to kill somebody, want to blow somebody up. It's not even really, it's certainly not literal, right? It's an expression of anger in your mind. It's kind of a playing out of feelings, and you either have the other side that basically keeps that side in jail, right? I mean, it's constantly holding it back. Otherwise, you would kill somebody, or you would blow them up, or you would try, right? I mean, obviously, you probably would or would not succeed. Since I've never even attacked another person in my whole life. I mean, I remember in first grade, I had my best friend, Eddie Murphy, and for some reason, I suddenly got the urge, and it wasn't anything violent or mean, but I got the urge to punch him in the stomach. I mean, this is first grade, right? We're tiny little kids. And I punched him in the stomach, and he kind of doubled up a little bit, and I went, oh man, I'm so sorry. I just got, I just wanted to try that. And, you know, if you looked at it objectively, it probably had something to do with the fact that my dad was smacking me in the head every day, just about, whenever my mom wasn't around, or something like that. I mean, I have no idea, but I felt so bad that I did it, and I don't think I've ever, I mean, even that wasn't in anger, so I have to say I've never hit anybody in anger except for in self-defense, right? Fought back. So, you know, you either have that, and I think that's where I learned to keep that side of me in check. And I think anybody who says they don't have that side, that they never get those thoughts, that they want to do bad things, is lying, okay? And anybody who's listening to this who says to themselves, well, no, I don't get those, I don't think those things, you're lying. You are lying. There's not a person on this earth who doesn't get those thoughts flashing through their head. And the people who are lying to themselves, so they're lying to themselves so well they really believe that they don't have those feelings, that they don't have those thoughts run through their head. They're more dangerous than the people who admit to themselves that they have those thoughts. Because the people who lie about it and lie to themselves, they don't have even the opportunity to set up that mechanism in their head to basically incarcerate those feelings and hold them at bay until, you know, I don't know if they're even needed in self-defense. We don't even need to feel the instincts. I think that you're better off if you have to be violent and act in self-defense. You're better off to do it rationally rather than instinctually. Instincts have their place, obviously, when you're faced with something where you don't have time to think about it. Then instincts are definitely a plus, you know. And I've already explained in my videos that there is no good or bad act. You know, killing somebody can be a good thing, and obviously can be a bad thing. But if you were forced into a situation where you had to defend innocent people, that's what war is, right? Or it's what it should be. I mean, there's the flip side of that coin, and the people who are trying to kill innocent people who you're fighting, and they're the opposite. And that's kind of the definition of good and evil. Anyway, I'm going to get more into that. What I'm referring to is the statement that I made here where I said that it makes me... First I was talking about other people. I was saying, you know, I was saying that the SNAP people are making people angry. Well, I wasn't just talking about SNAP people. I'm talking about Republicans talking every day about taking away your food stamps, taking away things that you need to survive, right? And I was talking about how angry that must make people feel, and then I referred to myself as an example, how angry it makes me. So angry I want to kill somebody or blow somebody else. If I could find the person who's responsible. Well, no. If I could find the person who's responsible, I'd sit back, go home, try and figure out how to deal with them. Even if they're killing people. You know, I mean, there's got to be some kind of rational way to make these people understand the anger and the frustration that they're causing, and really the evil that they're spreading throughout the world. I know they hate that. It's just like, you know, there's two things that racists hate, and one is being called a racist, and the other is black people. Love that. Dan, what's his name, said that, Bill Maher. And it's so true, you know. People who are evil don't even know they're being evil. As a matter of fact, most of them believe they're just absolutely perfect, and that they're the ones who are fighting evil. Well, that's not the reality. But, just to aside here, this point in this video, I'm around the front of the building where Spectrum Cable is, and you know, the Department of Community-Based Services around the other side of the building, but they're all in the same building. But I thought it was really exemplary of how disconnected people are, that none of these guys, You see these guys who are like this guy, and there's some guys over here. None of them even know that the Department of Community-Based Service, so they don't even realize that there's people, all these people going in and out and going down this street. I know you can't see it, but they're all going down that side of the building to go get food stamps and Obamacare. And women who have to get stuff for their babies and, you know, all that stuff. Basically, this is where people get welfare outside of Social Security insurance, which Social Security insurance won't kick in unless you sell off everything you own. I mean, I think they allow you to have about $1,000 or $2,000 worth of, I mean, you have to be, it's ridiculous. There's no help for people who are just in bad shape, and they want you to sell off everything you own. So, if you own a piece of land, and they've denied me Social Security because I inherited my grandparents' farm, which is worthless. All it did is cost me money all that time until I finally figured out how to rent it out. I mean, I was paying to put a roof on it. I paid I forget how much money my dad invested into it, enough to piss my mom off to no end. She hated the fact that my dad, on my behalf, invested in that. And then I had to pay the taxes after he died, which was like $650 a month, somewhere in there. And then I got them to lower it down to $300, but I need to get them to lower it down to $0 because I do not have income. I mean, $245 a month, that's gone before I even get it. It is. It's literally gone before I get it. You know, I have to invest in keeping my computer running, and I'm a musician, and so I need to buy a few things to make music, and I don't know how to describe it to you. There's all kinds of little things, you know, like this cam. I need it to do what I'm doing right now and to make my show. I'm a journalist, and which I'm making a show right now. I mean, this isn't for the court, but I'm thinking I'm going to use this in court. For those of you who are unaware of it, I've been charged with terroristic threatening because I said, I'll just try and find it real quick. Okay, this is the beginning of when I'm talking. Now, I'm talking to my car cam. I'm not talking to the girl on the phone. Back here somewhere, I got a hold of the girl on the phone, and she told me to hold on. But this black guy came up to me, who I'd been talking to earlier, and told me that they'd moved the offices to the other side of town. So I'm on my way to the other side of town. I've basically forgotten about her. I thought I was on hold, and I have the phone in my hand, but I've basically forgotten about her at this point. Let's see. I can find it exactly. Okay, because it was sitting over on top of my seat on the passenger side, and I looked for it to talk to it. And then once I saw it was sitting over there, I picked it up and moved it. And the sound doesn't come on right away when you click on play on this. But, you know, you forget. I mean, you're driving. Okay, now, it does sound like I'm talking to her, but I'm actually not. And the reason it sounds like I'm talking to her maybe is because I'm talking about the food stamp stuff. But I'm talking for myself. You know, I'm making notes for myself. And possibly for my show, because I'm always thinking about my show. Because it's like 4 hours at back then when I was doing it. Now I've stopped doing it because I've gotten screwed over by the cops and everything. And it just, you know, it distracts you so much. Okay, so that's what I'm charged with. I'm telling you, it's not to be taken literally. I mean, yes, you get those feelings like you'd want to, you know, it's a kind of a Walter Mitty kind of thing. Like you think like out of the movies, you know, like Rambo or Arnold Schwarzenegger in Predator or something, you know, with this, you picture yourself with this big giant gun and you're just blowing the hell out of everybody and killing all the bad guys, right? But that's not really, I mean, it's just you can't tell me that I'm the only person in the world who doesn't just kind of get those flashes of revenge, you know, when you're angry, when you're thinking how angry you are. And yet at the same time, while I get them, I know I'm thinking at the same time, of course, that's what you might, in some hypothetical world, want to do or feel like doing. And there's no way. There's no way. I mean, what would, and I talk about this later, is what would motivate you to actually, I mean, I sold all my guns. I mean, I don't even have those guns. Those kind of, you know, I had an assault rifle, and I just decided that I loved this girl in Belgium, and I sold them all so I could fly over there and try and see if she was the right one for me. So, you know, there's no reality to those feelings for me and for most people, and you can't go arresting everybody because everybody would be in jail. Everybody would be. Because everybody has those feelings, feelings that they want. You want to kill everybody, you know, just the anger that makes you want to kill somebody, just want to strangle somebody, right? But it's just, and I don't know if that's a way of getting it out of your system, just wanting to for a second or whatever. But you can't go throwing everybody in jail. You can't go dragging everybody to jail. Who says that on the phone? Now, if they say, I'm coming down there and I'm going to kill somebody, that's different. That's a totally different thing. That's a direct threat. This isn't even a threat. I know the words are the same. You know, you're saying kill and stuff like that, and blow up and all that kind of thing, but just because the words are the same doesn't mean they mean the same thing. And certainly in this case, they don't mean the same thing. And then, I'm telling you, and this is an important part of my defense, you know, because I made the mistake of letting somebody overhear this, a government, so now who knows how many people, but, you know, so I start talking about those kind of things, like what motivates a person to actually do that. And more than that, I talk about when is it right to, because I mean, violence is everywhere. So when is it right to be violent? And when is it, when is a person pushed so far that they're justified in, you know, blowing somebody up or killing somebody? And I'm just talking about, you know, kind of the mechanics of all that. I'm not really, I mean, I'm trying to figure out mechanically, well, when is it that, you know, people are justified in doing those kind of things, and when are they acting? Basically, I'm trying to figure out when people are acting in self-defense by being violent. So I'm just, you know, I'm just philosophizing. I'm not discussing. You know, I talk about, well, when I've been pushed so far, am I a pussy because I don't do anything about it? Things like that, you know. And am I? You know, I mean, I had 6 cops outside my door, and cop cars all down the streets in my my mom's neighborhood. I told them I was right there. I told them I was staying with her until this all blew over, and I told them I would come down anytime and turn myself in. You know, I tried to, I called them like 6 times, the police who arrested me, and talked to, I even actually got to talk to one guy twice about my case, and told him, look, man, I'll come down there and turn myself in anytime you want. Just tell me when. And then, after all that, they just show up at my door and handcuff me and take me off. And the whole neighborhood, there's like cop cars with their lights going and everything. I mean, it was totally uncalled for. And I'm gonna set that straight. That's not right. You know, a guy tells you that he's gonna, I mean, all I wanted to do was come down there and be processed and pay my bail or whatever and get out, because I'm not guilty of anything. And you know what? They know it. They know that. From the cop that I talked to, Detective Merker, to everybody else who's listened to this, what I'm showing you right now, the recording of this, which it's not this recording, it's their recording. Every one of them knows. For sure, Detective Merker, and why wouldn't he tell everybody else that, look, this guy has said he'll come down here anytime. He's told us where he's at, if 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 because usually I'm not here. I'm just here to do my show for the internet, which covers a lot of these. I talk about terrorism and all kinds of other things, and it's no secret that I try and see why our enemies hate us, and if we're doing anything wrong to make them hate us, right? And so people don't like that point of view. They don't even want to hear that point of view. Everybody wants to believe, oh, America's so perfect and they don't do anything wrong. And I have to look at it objectively, because I'm trying to find solutions for these problems, even though nobody's going to listen to my solutions even when I get them, because it seems like everybody just wants to fight, you know? They come down to my house and drag me off in handcuffs because I talk about it, but I'm not the one who wants to fight. I mean, the fighting is going on. I mean, we're flying all the way over to the Middle East and dropping off people to kill people and bomb people. Fuck, man. And you're worried about me expressing my feelings? Really? And again, I have to remind if I end up showing this to the court, or if you end up looking at it because you want to find out more about me by checking out my show, which this will probably be on my show, most certainly will be. Well, I lose my train of thought from time to time. But suffice to say that, you know, oh, I was going to say, and I remind you that this wasn't being said to the girl on the phone. She just overheard it. And, you know, this is my property. These recordings are my property. The fact that she overheard it and the fact that the Department of Community-Based Services was inadvertently recording it. You know, I should have just hung up when I told her. I told her that I found out where to go, and I was just staying on the line to be polite to her. And again, I thought I was on hold, and I thought that, and I'd forgotten that I was even on hold. I mean, it's like a double whammy. Not only did I think I was on hold when she said you'll just have to hold on, but then, you know, you just stay on the line when people put you on hold to be polite. You know, they say that no good deed goes unpunished. You know, I'm staying on the line to be polite, and I end up being charged with terroristic threatening, and who knows, I may end up going to jail just because I was being polite. That's what it really comes down to. Crazy fucking world. Excuse my language, but it is crazy. And when it gets this crazy, I wonder if it's even worth staying in it. You know? What's the point? But then I know what the point is. The point is right here, right now. I love life, and everybody loves life. And unfortunately, that may be the motivation for all this stupidity that's going on. Everybody loves it so much that they screw other people over just to try and secure their life. I'm working for a better way to where everybody can feel secure. So anyway, let's listen to what else I have to say.
And maybe I'm because of that. But first of all, I'm not suicidal. Second of all, well, no, first of all, right?
So right there, you know, I'm talking about how I would never try to blow somebody up or kill somebody, because well, I'm not saying I couldn't get away with it. I'm a pretty smart dude. You know, if I wanted to exact revenge or something, I could probably get away with it. But I'm saying that I probably couldn't as well. You know, what I'm saying there is that it would be very dangerous, right? I mean, there aren't very many people who get away with being a terrorist in America. And I'm saying, you know, it'd be suicidal. And I'm also thinking in the back of my mind about generally, because, boy, I have a lot of people who are serious. You know, I hear, now, I said I have a lot of people. What I was thinking was I have a lot of people that I see on the internet who are like, they're really serious about becoming, like, being terrorists. And I don't know who they were. You know, all of a sudden you're all jumping around going, who are these people, who are these people? I don't care, because when I see them spouting off about, you know, they're just internet Rambos. We call them internet tough guys. Usually they're right wing, and I think most of them are right wing, but they're right wing nut jobs is what we call them. And we see them, you know, saying how they're ready to go to war, like physically, like with guns and bombs and everything else. I don't want to get involved with anything, so I just kind of blow past them and forget about them and hope that they're not really dangerous. Now, sometimes some of them will threaten me, and then I have to, I mean, I think I've contacted the FBI a couple of times about a couple of people who've been really threatening, but they weren't really threatening. I didn't really feel threatened. I just felt like that they're threats, because they're for real. You know, what you're trying to pin on me, which isn't real, they're for real, so they're really threatening. So I, you know, like the guy who threatened to knock my effing head off in the Kroger's. God, having a guy like that all red in the face, all up in my face, and what did I do? Nothing. You know, he just thought I jumped in line. I didn't jump in line. I just got in line. So anyway, you know, one of the points I'm trying to make here is that the cops had no right, absolutely no right, to come and drag me out of my my mother's house. Absolutely no right. I had been down there 3 times, at least 2, I think 3. Told them several times when I was down there and when I was on the phone with them that I'd turn myself in, and then they go and do that. That is, to me, that's obviously, they're just trying to humiliate me. And you know, they all seem to be wanting to teach me some kind of lesson. What are you going to teach me? That I have no right to speak my mind non-threateningly, because I'm not threatening anybody. I haven't said I was going to actually blow somebody up or kill somebody. I just used that as a phrase. So I haven't been threatening in any way. And they're trying to make out like I have. But that, you know, that doesn't give them the right to come over and try and humiliate me and try and threaten me. You know, threaten me with, well, this whole thing's one big threat to me, right? Obviously. And so, you know, whoever issued the warrant, when they could have just picked up the phone and called me and I would have come right down there, you're wrong. Whatever judge did that, that was the wrong thing to do. I don't know if you were misled. You know, the Detective Merker should have made it clear to you that, you know, this guy is, all I have to do is call him up and he'll come right down here. seems to me like there's a combination of things going on. Not only, and I know that people assign the most altruistic motivations to their actions, and so they're going to say that, well, they want to surprise people, but that's wishful thinking. What they want to do is humiliate people, and you know, I still live in a world where you're innocent until proven guilty, and yet all these people are treated like they're, because I watched them all go through court. You see, there's a lot of things that I think that I don't say, but I was about to say that there's a lot of people who are being treated like they're guilty before they're duly processed, right? Before they get their day in court. And you know, no wonder so many people are so angry, because they get treated like that. And you know, that goes to a deeper issue, which is about environment and the economy, and how insecure everybody feels. And I'll get into that in greater detail at some point, because people are, the community, the country, is responsible for those environments that churn out, and the environment with the kind of police state that we always talk about churns out angry people. Now, whether they become terrorists or they become violent, I suppose that just depends on the people. But we don't need the police churning out angry people in our community, because you know what? We're the ones who end up having to deal with all that anger. We're the ones who get hurt by those people, not you. Very rarely hear about a cop getting killed by some angry black guy or minority or something. No, it's, you know, they take their revenge out on soft targets. And yeah, terrorism is really important to me. You know, I and my father and my mother, well, my mother didn't seem to know what was going on, but we lived in Lebanon, and we participated in helping the American government track down PLO and you know, and deal with them, and supplied them with information, which is just as important, right, in a situation like that. So, and then we went on to Saudi Arabia, where my dad no doubt was involved with, and sure, maybe he, because he would never admit to anybody except for me one time that he was doing all these things. So my point is that I'm interested in terrorism because I spent my whole life fighting it, right? Or fighting the Russians, or whatever. Stuff that I really think we made a lot of mistakes. Okay, and that's one of my areas of expertise. I'm telling you, I've got a lot of areas of expertise, but that's one of the big ones, because I have to deal with it. You know, how many of you had a little Palestinian kid sneak up behind you, and then I turn around and I get a rock in the eye, and I can't see properly out of the side because of that rock. So I have to live with that little terrorist. You know, this is just kids, but now we're all adults, and who knows what happened to that kid, right? And his whole situation I could describe to you and tell you what happened, and you would be like amazed. I had to watch as we're really not sure exactly how many people were massacred that day, but in 1973, and then in 75, I had to watch that war, And, you know, I mean, it's obvious whose side we were on, right? I mean, my friends were the Shamoons and the Salems and all Christian Lebanese, and in Saudi Arabia, the mistake of raising the Mujahideen to go to in Afghanistan, and I know my dad was involved with that because I got involved with that somewhat. Although I pulled out. I was like, these guys are not my cup of tea, right? I mean, Bin Ladens and people like that. At the time, the United States was using them. And then Indonesia. And God, you don't want to know. So all this horror and anger and violence, and you're going to come down on me for just having a simple discussion with myself, because that's what this is really about, in my opinion. I know I don't, you know, I'm not able to record all these people's conversations with each other, all these cops and attorneys and judges and everything, but every one of them's gotten to hear me talk, and here's some more of me talking.
I believe in, even when dealing with bad people. I don't know though, man, you know, war is war. And these people, they...
Okay, like I said, I don't say everything I'm thinking, and when I'm talking about dealing with bad people, what I was saying was I believe in, and here's, I'm going to finish that thought, okay? So, I believe even when dealing with bad people, let me see, I'm going to, it's hard to remember exactly, but well, basically, I don't believe in lowering myself to their standards, you know, so, I don't know. It's hard to remember. When I remember it all, I'll let you know.
People like me every day. So, I guess what it comes down to is when...
So, these thoughts are fleeting. I mean, I'm in the process of developing them, you know, when I'm speaking to my car cam. And one thing I gotta say here in my defense is, do you really think that I'm gonna talk like that to a girl on the phone at the Snap place? I mean, it is obvious that I am not talking to her. What? I mean, you're gonna have to prove that I'm insane, that I'm absolutely crazy to prove that I'm talking to her on the phone, because you know, I've been told, yes, that some people do that, but not me. I would never just go off. That's crazy. That's crazy insane. It's cray-cray, as I hear people refer to it. It's not me. It's not what I'm doing right there. I'm talking to my car cam, and I have been from the minute that I started looking for it, just before I took it off the, you know, that long silence between when she said, "You'll have to hold on." From then on, I'm not, certainly not talking to her. Now, I mean, you want to throw me in jail and make my life miserable because I have these opinions, and because I want to think about things and I want to discuss things. Well, you know, I mean, that's going to be on whoever does that to me, because you know, I have a right to my opinions. I have a right to think. I have a right to talk things out to my car cam. Hash things out, as we say. But if you want to take that right away from me, well, you know, I don't know what to say, man. I mean, I'm going to fight all the way. And no, I don't mean I'm going to blow people up and kill people. Although, you know, as I'm discussing there, when is that point where you know, a person has a right to defend themselves against these people and what they do? This police state and this all these tough guys out there, all trying to live out their little dreams, you know, I keep them in my head. Those people are trying to live out their little fantasies of beating on people and hurting people, shooting people. You know, these cops. It's pretty obvious that they're all, you know, they all want their day when they defend America or defend their community. And that would be great if it wasn't really just a veil for anger and violence. And I'm sure after seeing all the things I've seen in my life that that's what that is with these people. I mean, I've been dealing with bullies, and yeah, a lot of them became cops because, you know, the cops will just take anybody. They don't, I don't know that there's even a way for them to realize that they're taking in a whole lot of people who have a lot of serious issues, man. I mean, these people, you know, they're just looking for a fight. That's what they're looking for. You know, people like me don't give them an excuse, except for by accident. You know, I accidentally let them hear this. I would have never let them hear this. But you know what? I'm glad it's out in the open. I mean, even though I would never let them hear this, I have tried and tried and tried to talk to people about these things, about this, and so has everybody else. I mean, I see these issues covered constantly in the liberal media, or not the liberal media so much as the progressive media. I'm going to have to start making that distinction now, because the progressive media is the only one. The liberal media, you know, they have their talking points, like the Republicans have their talking points, like Fox News has their talking points, which are usually bullshit, right? Except for in some cases. And the progressive media has legitimate issues, you know, like how people are treated here on the street. You know, I know you can't see it because the screen doesn't seem to show up very well. From about there it does, but then you can't hear me. So on this level, on the street, you know, progressives, their ways of thinking, they really rule the argument with reason, with logic and reason, and in a very real way. So, you know, we've tried to talk to you about these issues, about how to deal with the anger, the angst and the anger and everything. And we failed. You guys just don't want to listen to us. And so, in a way, this is an opportunity.
Interest in Libya in 2012.
The server contains personal communications from my husband and me.
Only time I got on the internet, I did 2 emails, and I ordered Christmas presents from a reservation. Otherwise, I found people said embarrassing things on emails. I didn't want to be one of them.
I mean, and how many angels dance on the head of a pin? I have really nothing to. I mean,
I represented Wall Street as a senator from New York, and I went to Wall Street in December of 2007, before the big crash that we had, and I basically said, cut it out. Quit foreclosing on homes. Quit engaging in these kinds of speculative behaviors.
Now, who's exactly to blame for the housing crisis? And I think there's plenty of blame to go around. Home buyers who paid extra fees to avoid documenting their income should have known they were getting in over their heads.
Of course we have to deal with the problem that the banks are still too big to fail. We can never let the American taxpayer and middle-class families ever have to bail out the kind of speculative behavior that we saw. But we also have to worry about some of the other players. AIG, a big insurance company, Lehman Brothers, an investment bank. There's this whole area called shadow banking. That's where the experts tell me the next potential problem could come from. So I'm with both Senator Sanders and Governor O'Malley in putting a lot of... I represented New York, and I represented New York on 9/11. When we were attacked, where were we attacked? We were attacked in downtown Manhattan, where Wall Street is. I did spend a whole lot of time and effort helping them rebuild. That was good for New York, it was good for the economy, and it was a way to rebuke the terrorists who had attacked our country.
9/11 was bad.
I agree with you.
As Senator Clinton, the pressures are very different. It's a well-financed industry. A lot of people don't realize that the industry that gave the most money to Washington over the past few years was not the oil industry, was not pharmaceuticals. It was consumer credit products. Those are the people, the credit card companies have been getting money, and they have influence.
And Mrs. Clinton was one of them, a senator.
She has taken money from the groups, and more to the point, she worries about them as a constituency.
So what does this mean, though, to these people, these millions of people out there whom the politicians cavort in front of as favoring the middle class and then are beholden to the powerful interests that undermine the middle class? What does it say about politics today?
This is the scary part about democracy today. We're talking again about the impact of money. The credit industry on this bankruptcy bill has spent tens of millions of dollars lobbying, and as their profits grow, they just throw more into lobbying for how they can get laws that will make it easier and easier and easier to drain money out of the pockets of middle-class families.